We've got 3,000 Years of Longing, a new George Miller movie. George Miller, who makes Babe and Mad Max Fury Road and Happy Feet. And
Wait, what? I don't know anything about this dude. So he makes Babe and Happy Feet and Mad Max Fury Road.
And this. And other things. He made the original couple of Mad Maxes too. He's the Mad Max guy. That's his big franchise. But yeah, he made the Babe movies as well. And he made Happy Feet, and he's made other things. I like to, those are fun to point out because it's so it's the range of the movie. And this one is not like any of those either.
No, this one throws in a whole new something into the soup.
Dr. Alethea Bingy, I guess I didn't really pay attention to her name. Tilda Swinton's character is an academic content with life and a creature of reason. While in Istanbul attending a conference, she happens to encounter a djinn, that's Idris Elba, and he offers her 3 wishes in exchange for his freedom. Then there's more stuff here, but really it's the genie, but it's a djinn in the story, which I guess is like the original way to say genie. So Tilda Swinton, she's Tilda Swinton character, an academic, lonelier woman, as you would imagine a Tilda Swinton character be. And she comes across the djinn. Djinn's going to give her 3 wishes, but, this isn't going to be an Aladdin-type story where it's a little more whimsical and frivolous, and this was going to be different than that. So, did you know anything going into 3,000 Years?
No, I kind of thought it was going to be a totally different kind of movie, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, I knew almost nothing. I knew George Miller made another movie, and it was like a crazy weird movie. And I was like,
I saw trailers though. Did you see trailers in the theater?
I saw 1 or 2 trailers, and it might have been the same trailer. But like, I looked, I was like, I don't fucking know what that's gonna be. But it looked to me, it looked kind of like a mess. Like it looked kind of like not good. And I was like, I'm still gonna see that because the Mad Max guy, he makes amazing shit. So. Okay. So, if you have not seen 3,000 Years of Longing, theaters is where you do it, and we are going to spoil it here now. And so, there are her name's weird. So, Tilda Swinton's character is a British scholar. She has these weird hallucinations at the beginning of two they call them demonic beings, but they're like mythical characters. One is like a little elf creature guy, and the other is like a king, priest, lord creature.
Yeah.
When that happened, I was like
a Middle Ages priest from Game of Thrones or something.
Yeah, he's kind of he's creepy looking characters. And when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, gonna be afraid of this guy. Okay, he's gonna be afraid of this stuff. I don't know. I didn't.
She may not like this.
I was like, I didn't think this was gonna be horror-y. It's kind of like I'll say that analogy in a minute. Actually, she finds a antique bottle at a store and she buys it, and then she's washing it, and then it's to rub the bottle, and then out comes Jin, and he's enormous, and he shrinks down to right size. He speaks old ancient languages, but he picks up on English quick. He interacts strangely with technology, with TV and radio, and that'll come into play later. And he presents, I'm a djinn, I grant you 3 wishes. And the scholar is skeptical of all this because she knows all about the history of these things, and all the 3 wish stuff in history is cautionary tales. It always ends bad for the wisher. And now she is the wisher, and she knows this, and she's like, I don't want to be caught in this trap where I make all these wishes and it screws me over, and you could be a trickster djinn. That's another thing, is trickster people who come and be like, oh, I'll give you anything you want, and then they turn it on you. So Jin has been trapped in this bottle, as you know. The 10,000 years can give you such a crank in the neck. This one, it's 3,000 years. And he regales Tilda and the audience with all of these tales of his past lives. So we're traveling to all these ancient places. I know some are based on real things, and others I'm not sure. Maybe you know more about that stuff. But it's mostly them in this hotel room, and him telling her stories, trying to convince her that he's on the up and up, and to make the wishes so that he can be free. And that's most of the movie. And then there's kind of a 15-minute 20-minute third act thing that happens, and we'll get to that later.
It's a little different. Yeah.
That's this movie. It's mostly story time with Jin.
Yeah.
So what did you think of this?
Did this movie happen? Because
what do you mean did it happen?
That's my first thought. Is like, because we get her in the very beginning. First of all, Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba, I think, are perfect for both these roles. It's basically the two of them with these little side stories that come in, and the other characters I don't find to be particularly compelling or super important, but they
because
are
the other characters are their story. They are story. These
stories.
two are the only.
Yeah.
These are people. The other people are characters and stories. Yeah.
Right. And they're important because of that, but otherwise, they're ancillary.
Right, they're important for the lessons they tell our characters who we actually care about.
Yeah, yeah. But to immediately you have to immediately believe like the Tilda Swinton character is exactly who she is, and I think it's perfect casting for somebody like her because she can morph into whatever you need her to be, but it has to start with quirky or really off base or whatever, and that's exactly what it is. This person, she looks like one of the most normal Tilda Swinton characters I've ever seen. Like
in a long time.
A normal haircut. She's got normal little glasses. She's kind of plain librarian-ish looking, very scholar, academic looking, but right away that the fact that this story is going to be a little fantasy, it's perfect casting for her because I can immediately believe that she's that character. But my reason for saying, did this movie even happen, is because in the beginning we're introduced to her and almost immediately we are pushed into these few hallucinations that she has. And so I'm thinking, as soon as those happen and I realize that it's just happening to her, nobody else is seeing these things, when the Jinn appears, I am immediately like, is this real? Like, is this her reality?
Are we doing It Was All a Dream movie?
It was all not a dream, but just her, like, maybe she's got something, maybe she had a brain injury younger or something, and she has, issues with reality or something. I don't know.
Right.
But we're taken through the whole movie, and then so the whole time this movie's going, I'm thinking, is this real? Is this not real? It's not taking me away from enjoying what's happening in the film, but we get something a little bit later on that kind of puts it a foot in reality. Once we get into the third act makes it real, I guess, for me. Is what
third act is third act is about, and it's very short. It's almost like an epilogue, like, to the main story. It's whatever. What do you?
Yeah. So because I was thinking that this was going to be a bit more action adventure-y because of the stories that he tells are all very fantastical tales that we all know from, like, 100 or 1001 Nights and all of these kind of things. I'm thinking that it's going to be oriented like that. So your dad came with me under the same impression, and this was not his kind of movie. But he said, it was fine. It was fine.
I could see it being too, like, ethereal and too, like, mystically arts, and there isn't a lot of action. It's very like
action.
It is. It's very engagingly shot, and, like, there's big stuff going on, but it's not like an action adventure movie traditionally. Like, it's
basically retelling of history, and the history that you're retelling is hundreds of years old, and things at that point were always very
and the way they're like telling
life
it,
or death, or that
they're
kind
making
of thing,
it very. They make the flashbacks very of that, like, time. Like you said, those don't feel like characters when you're watching. It doesn't feel like you're watching other characters. Like when he talks to the different women who, like, are his masters at the different points in the past, or like when he's describing the brother characters in the middle story. Like, these people don't totally feel like real, like, characters in this story. It's kind of story within a story. And then and so I could see why that's hard for someone like him to, like, care or connect with, because to him this is probably just the two of them in the room telling stories. He's waiting for that to happen. not realizing
He's waiting for
that
them to leave the room and for the movie to start. And
and the movie doesn't.
that does happen eventually, but that's not what happens.
I would say in that case, the movie doesn't start until about an hour and a half in.
Right, until right before we leave.
Yeah.
So I was a complete surprise, a pleasant surprise, I guess, for me, because it is something a little different, but also sometimes different is not always my jam. So, but because it was believable, because these two together were weirdly believable for me, I enjoyed this film.
Strange, yeah, because you always have the believability hang up, but I guess it's because Idris and you guys all actually have it. All three of you, everyone else on the show except for me has. You guys have so much trouble just accepting like this is the world the story takes place, and you're like, but that's not how our world works. And I'm like, well, that's not the world we're in.
No, some of the problem it lies in like this. I can list it in my head as a fantasy, so it's okay for all these things to happen outside of normal realms for us. But when you're talking about movies that look like they belong in our world, but then have unbelievable things happen, or like nobody has a job, or nobody is beholden to anybody else, or they've got an apartment in New York that's 4,000 square feet and they work at Starbucks. It's like those kind of things I can't suspend reality.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of that stuff I believe in papering over, because like you can't. That would take so much time in so many movies to explain all the stuff like that, like why they had to do stuff like that. It's just too much. That's too much. That's a lot of own.
Maybe it's not a story worth telling then.
All right. Oh, that's another time. I'm like, why isn't the whole movie why do they have to? They have the two like phantomy creatures in the beginning, and then he meets Jin. I don't really like that choice because I don't want to even think of there's a possibility that this is an unreliable narrator, because I believe her, she says at the beginning, she's like, I'm gonna tell you this like a fairy tale. It's a true story, but like you wouldn't believe me anyway, so I'll just pretend it's a fairy tale anyway and just tell you it that way. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. And then they show the two little creatures, and then she meets the Jin, and then the story's going. And in the back of my mind, I have the same thing, like, is it gonna be a dream? Because that sucks. Like no one like that worked once or twice a long time ago, but it was all a dream. Kind of done. Right. Like it's not like that's not you unless it's like Inception, which you probably don't like, but it doesn't fully. Most people like that movie, in case you were wondering.
I have no idea what happens in that movie, honestly.
But that's a movie where possibly all a dream, but like at least the ride is good. People enjoy it. It's a thinker. And then the ending part, when we get to the ending part, is so different than the rest. And I'm spoiling, and I don't like that part. I don't like the way this movie ends or the third act. But I really enjoyed the storytelling bit in the middle, and all about like to Jin, all life is stories, because you just granted wishes. You're granted wishes, and you're time hopping because of the nature of your being and going in and out of bottles and all the rules that you have to subscribe to, and you're just basically granted wishes and hearing stories from all these people from all these times. I'm like, that's exactly what I like movies, is storytelling, and just like fantastical stories. And the stories are all, they're spins on tales we've heard. Some are based on real things, some are kind of moving things around, but they're all, I find all three of the flashback stories all relatively entertaining. I like all of them.
Yeah.
I don't think that, and I think they're tonally consistent. It's not like a lot of like anthologies where like you kind of have like, oh, here are the three different stories we're telling, and there's clearly well, what did we do recently? French Dispatch. That's another movie with like three stories in the middle, tied up by like a couple characters telling them at the one place, and it's also all made by one filmmaker. This is all George Miller, that was all Wes Anderson, so it's not like an anthology of filmmakers making stuff. So all the stories feel tonally consistent, but they don't feel quality inconsistent like French Dispatch did, where like one story was like pretty good and then a couple were terrible. This is like, they're all like, none of them are blowing my mind, but they're all like pretty solid. That's how I found all three stories.
And I think that's by design. I like that choice. I think he could have easily like taken one of the stories and really gone with it, and it would have been like a superior story. But
the middle one's the most fleshed out, but yeah,
it's the most fleshed out. But I don't even know if I find that one the most interesting. But I think that I think it was a choice to do that, because he could have made it where one was and then we'd be talking about, like, I didn't even, when I was prepping for this, I was like, I didn't even think about talking about the, how good the stories were, because I really just felt like it was part of the film. Like, it really felt seamless to me because of how it's his stories. He's the one who, we can believe that he's been through time because he's a djinn. See, right. I can suspend reality just like anybody else.
Well, I mean, it takes a genie to show up and the genie to be Idris Elba, so he convinces you that this is an appropriate genie.
I'm not sure the genie had to be. I'm going to say something that I never thought I would say, but I don't know that the genie had to be Idris Elba. I think it's good that he is, and
It had to be a person, though. It had to be like there had to be two people you recognize in this. It had to be the djinn and the historian. Yeah.
Right, but I already have a predisposition to liking movies that Idris Elba's in, so that's helpful for me.
Don't we all on the show?
What?
I said, don't we all on the show? He's one of the popular guys who comes up on our show all the time.
Is he really? I had no.
We've done 2 movies where he's a cowboy. The last movie we did was an Idris Elba movie. It was Prey. I don't know if that was the last episode that got released. The last one we were. Not Prey.
Well, that's because he just released 2 films like back to back. So
he was in Cats.
3. Yeah.
Molly's Game. He's a lawyer. Very good. A lot of shows he's done.
What about The Mountain Between Us with him and what's her name from
Naomi? Is that who's on that one? Kate Winslet.
It's Kate Winslet. Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
It's not good.
No, we didn't talk about that one. We didn't save that one. So we totally talked about the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I'm thinking that. If this happened to you and somebody came up, or the djinn's like, you have 3 wishes, I know people always try to think that they're going to be smart with their wishes, but are you smart enough like Tilda Swinton to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do the wish thing because
was thinking about it whenever it was kind of perfect, because you know how like sometimes you think about things in the movie and then you're kind of lost out of the movie and then you snap back into it and then you're like, oh, that's right, I'm still watching a movie, because you kind of go off on your own. Like, oh, what would I do here? And the movie's kind of perfect because I go off on those what would I do right when she does in the hotel room when nothing's happening. And then I snap back into it when Idris Elba starts telling a story. I'm like, oh, perfect. I can kind of drift while they're drifting. And then when he starts telling a story again, I can pay attention to the story. And I'm like, it's kind of perfect. Because the whole time she's talking...
That's pretty good filmmaking, though, right?
It is. It's because you can tell this guy's been making movies for fucking 40 years. He's a good movie maker. I don't know why he bookended his story with Is It All a Dream and weird ending where let's live together in Britain for a little bit. Like, I don't know why. I don't know what compelled him, or if the story was bigger in scope originally, if he was trying to make it even more grand and like COVID restrictions, because as you can tell this is a COVID movie. There's some scenes
you can tell this is a COVID movie.
A lot of only, there's a reason they're only in the hotel room together, I think, beyond just it's a good place to tell stories. And you can see a couple of scenes when Tilda's walking around outside, she's got a face mask on, so and as everyone else does, so clearly COVID movie, which again, that's another thing. This is a pretty impressive for a COVID movie. It's a pretty impressive scope and scale.
The story scenes, or at least especially the one with the 2 brothers, there are a lot of people together in those scenes. So that's impressive. I'm sure those took the most time.
I'm sure it took forever to make this. I looked up the budget. I'm like, this has got to be an expensive movie. Like I can't imagine it's going to make its money back, but it cost $60 million, and I'm like, he really flexed that $60 million. Like, I think he did pretty good. I think it looks twice that. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, some of the caricature-y, like, bizarre creatures, like the 2 at the beginning, and then sometimes in the stories, some of the people and some of the things around are a little fantastical looking. That's another thing that I kind of like. This is the idea that, and some people actually believe this in real life. I don't know what they're thinking, but that like magic actually did used to exist, and as technology got more advanced, we kind of knocked kind of the onward theory. We're like, yeah, there's always been magic, and people used to like practice it, and like it was passed down, and then it was slowly lost over time as people got more technologically advanced, and then those things just became stories. And this treats it like that, where you go back in time, and like he goes back to the Sheba times, and they're in like the room with all the people, and like the guy who's wooing Sheba, his little guitar thing plays with like little hands that move around, and some of the people there are like kind of Anubis-y, like they got like parts of them from like other creatures and stuff. And then as we get further forward in time, it becomes less that, more science-based, kind of like Tilda Swinton says. But I kind of like that like, yeah, there was always been magic, but we just kind of slowly lose it over time because we learn. What does she say? It was magic is things we don't understand. Science is what we've learned so far, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
that all works for me.
It works for this movie. I don't know that I believe that there was more magic beforehand than there is
Well, I know,
now.
but that's what I'm saying. That's some people subscribe to that theory. It's a cute, nice, comforting theory that I think is probably wrong. But
but people live in different worlds, so that's okay.
I kind of the stories, like I know they're all kind of. They're all like 3.5, 4-star stories out of 5 to me. I like the middle one, not just because it's the most fleshed out, but it's got like some like clever gut punchy kind of stuff for like. So the middle story kicks off because the girl in the middle story at first is like a peasant slave girl, and she wants to marry the prince. And so she gets she wishes the prince would love her, and then he wishes he'll get pregnant with the daughter, and then obviously that backfires. They kill the prince, they kill her, and then the bottle of the gin is trapped under like a stone tile that she hid it under, and now he's forced to wander.
From the first one, yeah.
Yeah, and he's forced to wander around there for like 100 years. And that's when this is all the middle story, because then the brother finds the older brother and the younger brother find the bottle, and like they're like little kids, and then we kind of follow the story of the older brother with the younger brother and the mom too. And I like that not a lot of attention is drawn to any of these characters, because like we said, it's all told story back. But it's kind of sad watching the little kid brothers like playing around, and then the older brother becomes this horrible bloodthirsty monster, and he like abuses his mom, and he's gonna go kill his brother, who kind of becomes like a dope who just wants to lay in bed with a bunch of fat chicks all day and eat. I'm like, I think of the olden days, I'm like, I think he got the right idea. Like, there's nothing else to do back then. What else do you do when there's no air conditioning or electricity? You fucking lay around with your concubines. That's what you do.
Everything else involves violence and fighting or political stuff. So yeah, stay in the room, man.
Yeah, I love when the brother dies and they literally have to drag him to the throne. And he's like, "No, I just want to stay in with my fat ladies in my bed." I'm like, I feel you, man.
I thought you might relate to being dragged out.
That poor guy. I'm like, no, don't make me live up to my potential. I want to go back to bed.
Brennan, yes, live up to your potential.
I related to that middle story quite a bit, but there's also a Rube Goldberg aspect of it, where like when he hides the thing under, and then we meet the guy, the younger brother, and he has his thing for the fat women, and he's like, if it weren't for his love of the flesh or whatever, I would never have escaped. And you're like, what do you mean? And then it goes to the story, and it's because his like most favorite concubine, who's like this, she's like super tall, super huge. Yeah, she's like a 500-pound woman. She's huge, and she slips on like a tile, and it's the tile, and breaks it. And that's how she gets free. I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun.
With
like,
her
I don't
buttocks.
know. That's why I like that middle story. It's a little sad because you see the brothers grow up and how different and sad their life becomes, even though they're so privileged. And then you see the little clever you get the slip on a banana peel, break the tile, fat person falls joke. But it's still it all feels like, I don't know. It just feels like a good combination of storytelling elements. I like that middle story.
Yeah, that's the only story that I don't really like recognize as being, I feel like the names are familiar, but I don't know anything about any of that stuff. So
I knew Sheba from the first story. The third story is the girl who's like a young bride to this rich old dude, and she's very learned, and she wishes for basically knowledge, and then she creates a bunch of formulas and tries to learn about space and time and all this shit. I didn't know that story.
Probably like an amalgamation of a bunch of things, maybe the last one, but I enjoyed the last story, I think, because I was curious curious why he wouldn't want to stay, why that wouldn't want to be the place where he stayed, because he really seemed to like click with her,
Isn't that what happens in the story though? Like he tries to, and then like they get in a fight, and she hastily wishes he never met him.
That they never met,
and then immediately he goes in the bottle. And she forgets, and then the bottles, and then it's gone again. Like,
yeah, I mean,
That's
the
sad
middle
too.
story is tragic because it's the brother situation, and I know, and you live your life in a brother situation. But
I
I
suppose.
think the last one for me is more like I felt really sad about that. Not just sad that he had to go back in the bottle because that's a really hard thing, but the look on her face where she's like, "I what am I sort of like what am I doing here? What's happening? I don't, you know, everything that's happened is gone with him." So I find that
There's a small
kind
takeaway
of a
though.
bummer.
The Jin's motivations throughout, because are you like me thinking, is he gonna be a trickster at the end? Is he gonna convince Tilda to blow the way? Because in the stories, he's so desperate at certain points that he will grant any wish just to be free. Like he will do anything. He's no longer
Right.
trying, because he's usually trying to be like a counsel, a confidant, and then at certain points he's just like, get me out of here. And so she's trying to figure out the whole time, is like, how legit is this guy? Like, is he really
Right.
want to help me make wishes, or is he just one of those guys who likes to fuck with people and then he gets to go live in gin heaven or whatever he gets to do?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know what his end game would be. I know it's freedom, quote unquote, but what does that mean for a Jen? Does that mean they become mortal? Does that, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
do they go
It
to
sounds like
Jin heaven? I don't
well, that's what I
know what
thought. I
that
thought
is.
he says he goes to a gin place. I'm like, I don't know what the hell that means. Like, is that like,
Like a
is that a heaven,
bar
or
with
is
lots
that
of
like
gin?
is that a place where they all just go do open mics so they can tell their stories to each other? Because they seem to love that.
Exactly.
They get there, they're just like, all
I
right, what
want to.
stories you got from Earth? I got some doozies. Apparently, like, there's not a lot that come up in the 21st century, but there's a lot going on down there.
I would be like, one of my wishes is go to Club Gin and just like listen. to
Yeah,
what's
so that could be
happening.
interesting. So let's get into the
Yeah.
third part then. So it's
Yeah.
after
So there's the story. We meet him. There's the stories, and then
there's the story. She hasn't really made wishes so far. Her first actual wish is, and this is what's maybe holding some people back too, because when you go see a movie, Genie and Three Wishes, you kind of expect that to be the focus. I don't even really know what her wishes are. Her first wish was like, I want you to, what? How does she phrase it? Because they have like a gin sexual experience kind of thing when they're like on the bed and they're like glowing, and like she's like gaining his
Oh.
knowledge or his storytelling abilities, or to share their lot. I don't know what her first wish is. I don't know what it means. It basically means come back with me and live with me in my flat and bother our old
Right.
boomer neighbors. Like, that's basically what it means. I don't really know what this part of the story is.
Well, I think her wish, I don't don't remember what she says, and it's definitely not these words, but it's like that, come back with me. I want to possess you is what it is for that at that time. Like, I want you to come back. I want you to come back to my life, live with me in my life, not unlike what you've done with these other people in the past. Although I think she thinks she's being different. It's really not. I don't think it's different than the other ones. It's because, I mean, maybe we like her as a character and we don't see her as being a threat to him, but I don't think it's any different than.
It could be a little different in that, because by the end of this story, she is not miserable and destroyed, and her life is not over. At the end, it's a somewhat like happy, peaceful, content ending. Which is kind of her thing. That's her thing. That's why Jin struggles with her in the beginning so much. Is that she's like, I'm fine, I'm content. Like I
don't need anything more than I have.
Right,
Yeah.
like, and her life to our eyes isn't perfect. It's not great. She's a lonely person, but she seems fine. Like, to me, for like when I'm watching her at the beginning, like she's struggling with these hallucinations, but I don't think those are spawned on by loneliness. Like that's what's so weird about these bookends, is they kind of take away from the threads and the themes and all the cool stuff in the middle that I was really picking up on. The bookends don't work for me with the rest of the world. Like they don't I don't think they're kind of rough drafty feeling. They don't feel finished, especially the
They
end.
they don't work for you for the movie, or they don't work for you in like
They don't
real
work
life?
with me in congruity with the middle, which is the best part, which is the movie.
Right.
The middle, which is like an hour and a half,
Right.
is of storytelling, and there's a lot of lessons and themes and going on there, and like the whole fun part is working out what she actually going to do with her wishes, and in the end, she kind of uses one, and then she kind of uses another, and then Jin starts turning to dust because the electromagnetic frequencies are fucking with his head, because that's like how he gets his power, and it's kind of a cross of science and fantasy, and it's too much to think about and bring in at the last 10 minutes of your movie when you already have so much to go off of. It's almost like starting a new thing, and I'm like, we don't have time. This isn't related to what we did before. And then at the end, they just walk off into the sunset holding hands, and then he disappears. I don't understand. I don't know why this is.
So I was confused. I didn't really figure out like what her other wishes were. Maybe she said them and I wasn't paying attention close enough.
I don't think so. I don't think we would have all missed it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't exactly know why he turned to dust at that moment. Like, what changed? He did have to come into this world where he is hypersensitive and hyper aware of every single sound that is happening in the world, probably not just in her house or on her block. Like he's feeling all of it. Is it the accumulation of that, or was there something that I missed where why all of a sudden is he in the basement about ready to? I
guess it just kind of accumulated up on him because all the shit is slowly make it like fucking him up and like turning him to dust. I do like the scene. Like it's still all shot great. I like when she walks in and there's like you can see the dust floating in the lenses and there's like a path. Oh yeah,
and I knew what was happening immediately. Like as soon as she walked in the house and I saw the dust, I was like,
I knew he was disappearing too. I didn't know what we were doing. I thought when she goes down and finds him and she's dusting, and I guess she technically used her second wish to make him speak so that he kind of comes back to life for a second because he's almost dead. And then he goes, and he brushes all the dust off. Right. He's like, I was just taking a nap. And then she goes, Jin, don't sleep. I thought he was going to be like some other creature that was pretending to be a Jin, and he was a bad guy this whole time, and he's been fucking with her. And I thought he was going to be the little troll man from the beginning, or work for the evil priest guy. And I was like, because then I'm like, okay, something.
She revisits that little troll guy in her mind. Remember at the end, that little troll makes another appearance.
I don't remember that. That would have driven my thoughts even more towards what I thought was going to happen.
I did, and that. And I was concerned about that too, because I was concerned that when he was turning into dust, that he was really the troll guy, because that is the first instance that we get of supernatural character.
Right, and and this is the first time we've caught Jin not sticking to what he has said. This is the first time he's been unreliable. Yeah. We don't know. He has never said that if I am, not that he would know, but like it's the first time we've seen him do something that wasn't what he said already. Because up to this point, we're just waiting to catch him in a lie, kind of. Like we like him, but we don't fully trust him, and that's what I thought was going to happen.
I don't feel like he's unreliable. I think I trusted him more than you did. I don't think he's unreliable there. I think this is an instance of it's been hundreds of years since he's been in the world, and the world was relatively silent compared to how noisy it is today. And you're going from some little hamlet somewhere to London, very different, noise wise. So I didn't have an issue with that, but I was concerned that there was that concern for me of the trickster when we got a little glimpse of that gremlin from the beginning. And I still don't know what the purpose of that was.
No, I haven't fully gotten it.
Sure.
But then,
and then how? So is anybody? I have to ask a question. Is anybody seeing him in her life except for? So we meet these two women.
We know that he can be seen. Yeah, and we see at the very end he kicks the soccer ball to the kids, so he can be seen. He can interact with his physical environment.
Right.
And it's not all in her head then. It would.
Right,
it
but
would
I don't know
if it were. Yeah.
I don't know until the time that he goes to, because she's outside with him when the two old ladies come out to talk, and he's not seen. And then
is that part of her?
He's not seen.
Is that part of her wish to be like her first wish is to be like her boyfriend? I guess I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what it seems like. Her companion. Let's put it that way, because she's a little old to have a boyfriend. But when she takes him over, I think, the filmmaker brings him to life, to real life for everybody, when she takes him over to their house to introduce him to her, to the women. And then he got a little, social justice warrior there, but he didn't need to do that.
It
but
just
he did,
doesn't, but it didn't. None of that.
That didn't fit for me.
None of the. I don't like any. Like, I kind of like the dusting thing, and if it were to lead to something, but it doesn't. Instead, it leads to her going. Her third wish. It's all in quotations because her wishing is so like not like I wish for this clearly, and then he does a magic rub, and then it happens. It's very different than that. Right. And so like the third wish is basically like, oh, you're sick. I wish for you to like be able to go to the realm of the jinn, just come back and visit me at some point. And then we kind of cut to the future where she's in like a park, and then he visits her, and then he kicks the soccer ball to the kids, and then she's like, well, that's my story. And then that's sometimes I see him every once in a while, and that's I'm like that's
I don't mind that.
I don't
mind that because she doesn't because her like letting him go. I don't. Maybe I'm actually wrong. Maybe I'm backward in my thinking because I was thinking her letting him go almost seems like self-righteous, but her letting him go and saying you have to come back and visit me is actually really selfish. So, because he's now at the rave with the jinns, and then all of a sudden he's like, ah, crap! It's 12:47. I gotta get back to London. Hit up Tilda for a little while, play with some kids in the park, and
I kind of want an answer. I kind of want like. You presented to me every time people wish for stuff, they fuck themselves over and screw up. And she didn't. She, at the end, is perfectly fine. But I don't understand. So what's the lesson then? Wish weird? Wish generically and not fully about yourself? Like, I don't really know what that...
That's what it's supposed to be. I think in the beginning of wishing, or, this whole genie thing is that the only way that wishes benefit you is when
they're not selfish.
They are completely selfless. Yeah. They have to be selfless wishes, and it can't be like, and like he said in the beginning, I can't take away world hunger or whatever.
Yeah, it changes from depending on the thing, because some genies can't make them fall in love or kill people, but it all depends on whatever the story needs the genie to do.
But you can't. Yeah, so. So I'm okay. I think it's a pretty tight little movie, and I enjoyed it more than I thought it would. It really appealed more to the intellectual piece of me that a lot of times I don't watch movies for. That's not where I get my intellectual stimulation.
Yeah, you like the. You are very strange.
I like the getaway.
You guys are all so strange. You guys all watch things so differently than me. It's so weird. I don't.
That's because this is what tickles your brain.
It is. This was a very made for me movie that I wasn't expecting it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't love
movies
parts.
Movies for me are about emotion and heart. They're not about brain. If a movie's trying to get into my brain, I want it out immediately because I'm not. That's not where I get my.
I like emotion and heart things too, but like I like brain.
You do.
I prefer. I'm thinking of my favorite stuff. There's a couple of straightforward things in there, but for the most part, it's brain tickly stuff.
And this has both. I mean,
I think
that's the charm, and I think it's a really well done film. I mean, it might be one of the more well done films that I've seen in a while, especially if you consider all the constraints I'm sure it had to get it. Yeah. So
I also wonder if that affected how they chose to do the ending. The ending just felt like too much introduction. And we're trying to do I don't know. It felt like they're trying to start a whole new movie, and I'm like, we don't have time. This isn't quite exactly in line with everything else. It feels weird. The wacky neighbors feels weird. Him kicking soccer ball to kids feels weird. Him turning to dust kind of makes sense, but we kind of paper over. I don't know. It doesn't. None of that lines up with the rest of the feel of the movie.
None of that feels weird to me, only because that is where we're at in society. Like that's all the olden times feels dark and jewel toned, right?
Yeah.
And now we're here in this like almost black and white and gray.
Yeah, it looks
society.
Very different because London. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just representative of where the jinn is in the timeline. So that's I can forgive that. That doesn't bother me that much.
So you recommend in 3,000 Years of Longing?
Everyone's going to hate me for it because I don't know anybody that's going to want to really sink their teeth
this isn't a movie
this,
made for people that you would recommend things to.
It's not, but that's too bad. This is a movie I think people should see because I think that it's just enough. It's not crazy fantastical. It's not 100%, in this world. It's a little bit of history, pretty much things that everybody that I know hate to watch in a film. It's got a little love story, but that's about the only thing that's going to save it for my kind of people. So, but I still think they should watch it.
Yeah, I recommend this too. This is great. This is not great. This is like really. This is the kind of movie I would be like, I'd be happy if every movie was this, like, because or like this level of, it's just trying. It's trying, and it's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's
trying.
missing sometimes. It's very ambitious. It's got a lot of really good stuff. It's a good looking movie. It's got stuff I won't forget probably. Like, I could watch this, at least the middle stuff again. And yeah, you can tell when it's made.
We didn't talk about it, but the filmmaking I think is top notch.
Yeah, so, this in the hands of a lesser director is a big sloppy stupid mess, and that's what I saw when I saw the trailer. I'm like, I don't think this is gonna fall on its face. There's no way they're gonna make all this work together, and I think it pretty well does. I've complained about the beginning and the end not matching the tone of the middle and feeling weird feeling like it weakens the middle, but the middle is so like cool and creative and fun and also basic. Like it's just like a lot of old stories we kind of know, but combining them with some new twists, a couple of turns, good people we like to follow. There's a couple of mysteries we want to solve. Like it's very, very competent filmmaking and like very good big ideas that it fleshes out pretty well.
Good storytelling.
It is good storytelling. Yeah. It's 2 recommends for 3,000 Years of Longing. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this. So we've got a couple other theater stuff, and then September rolling in. It's what we're starting with. Our whole schedule's full. We'll go down the list of some of the other stuff in the future. We got a good year. This is a really good year. I'm telling you, this is. I already have two.
We're coming out of COVID.
I already have 2 or 3 movies that would have been number 1 last year had they come out, and they're already fighting this year, and we haven't even gotten to the Oscar movies yet. So I mean,
that could ruin everything.
Films with the Women in My Life on Facebook. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Brennan_podhost, and you can email the show filmswiththewomen@gmail.com. We have a YouTube channel now. It's just the audio getting posted there, but you can listen to that. Just look Films with the Women in My Life on YouTube, and we should be on there somewhere. All right. Thank you, OK, for being on 3,000 Years of Longing.
I wish you all a good day and good evening.
That was very nice. Until next time, this is Brennan signing off, saying thanks for listening and enjoy your movies.
Thanks for listening to Films with the Women in My Life. If you enjoyed being a listener in our life, please rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Keep up with the latest from the show on Instagram at Brennan_podhost, on Facebook at Films with the Women in My Life, and on Twitter at FilmsWomenPod. Finally, you can email the show with questions and suggestions at filmswiththewomen@gmail.com. Original music for the show was created by Ian Burke and Chris Iwanek. Original artwork created by Nicole D'Alessio. This show is produced by Brennan Snyder. Thank you again for listening and enjoy your movies.